Hello, 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 people. Welcome back to an episode of the USL Show. We are back, and so is the Super League. But apparently, Ryan Martin won't be as of this time next year. But we'll get into all of that later. I'm really sorry, Ryan. That was mean. We'll get into all that in a second. But first, Insider USL Tactics, John Morsey. How are you?
Yeah, feeling good. Had a busy day on the internet.
It seemed it. Ryan, how are you?
Yeah, doing well. Busy day indeed. With the most notable news is that Kayla and I's schools will be playing each other in football next year.
Which means I get to let Ryan stay at my house when he eventually comes down to Tuscaloosa. We have an open room. It is the room that we record in, so that's content. So, hey, before we get into the news, because there is a lot this week, I want to go ahead and thank special thanks to David Horn, our newest patron member. Thank you so much, David. And if you want to be like David Horn, Mark B, Josh, Dylan Reed, William Land, Cindy Lester, Ryan Smelter, Matt Capiel, Andrew Towsley, All of the Hedgehog, Kunal Patel, Emma West, NF Reg 30, Tim Knox, Raylan Lacara, Stephen Howard, Jeremy Churchman, Alberto Aguilar, Noah Telford, Michael Fuchs, Joshua Duder, John Fuller, Christopher Cohn, Frank Anthony, John Hunt, and Harry Austin. Then check out the Patreon link down below. Support us in that way, or just like and subscribe and share along with your friends. So, there's a lot of news to get to. Let's kind of start off with the one that stole a little bit of the internet waves, which was none other than John Morrissey breaking the news from trusted source that Ryan Martin is going to be relieved from his duties at Loudoun United come this year. Although it was already kind of talked about a little bit in the Athletic article from Pablo Maurer earlier this year.
Yeah, and you're right to lay that groundwork. I think the genesis of what's going on with this situation is the change in ownership that the club has gone through. Obviously, 2 years ago, DC United divests their majority control of Loudoun United and Attain Sports takes over. In April, then, Attain merges the club of Loudoun United with Virginia Revolution, a local youth soccer academy. So Virginia Revolution takes managing control of Loudoun, even though Attain and DC still have a stake in the club. The knock-on effect there was immediately Oliver Gage, former guest of the show, and I would say friend of the show, leaves Loudoun United. The thought at the time was maybe they're going to get rid of Ryan Martin, but the team is doing well. Now with some of the flagging form, per, again, Pablo Maurer's reporting today, there was seemingly an ultimatum that if Loudoun didn't beat Charleston over the weekend, they would tell Ryan Martin it was time to go at the end of the year. I have heard that that is indeed what happened, reported on it. So real changing of the tides for a club in Loudoun that appointed Ryan Martin as their head coach essentially 2 months into their inaugural season in 2019. He's been there forever, riding through the developmental era into this more independent seasons that we've seen from Loudoun, where they've really built a winner. It was Gage, it was Martin, coming together with a clear sense of identity on one hand, and then the statistical grounding, the ability to scout for talent that could fit that system. Obviously, what they've done with the resources that are so limited for Loudoun has been impressive, and I think that's a real feather in Ryan Martin's cap. For me, it feels like he's getting the short end of the stick here, and he's the victim of circumstance at Loudoun. But yeah, it's certainly a major decision for what was the second longest tenured coach in the USL.
Yeah, so I guess for me here, we talked to Oliver Gage earlier this year, and a lot of the data analytics people around the league and the country and even the world were very excited to hear about Oliver because, as you mentioned, John, he kind of moneyballs his way through things. And the kind of the concept of Moneyball, right, is to find players that do something that other people are undervaluing. And what Martin and Gage were able to do with the resources that they have is astonishing. And Oliver Gage said it really well himself. Loudon was not an attractive place to be. They have one of the highest cost of livings in the country. They were bad for a really long time. And we see kind of what's happening off the field and I guess kind of technically the locker room, right? With what was in Pablo Mauer's just kind of article he came out with The Athletic earlier this year. I don't know what Loudon's plan is because you're not going to be able to find anybody else in this country that can navigate a budget as tight as Gage and Martin did and have the success that they're having right now. And add on top of this, there was an alleged, win and you keep your job, but lose your out before they go away to Charleston. Away to Charleston. That just fire him at that point. Like, what's the point of giving the ultimatum of arguably one of the top two teams in the country, in the USL right now? And you're saying go win away? No way. So,
I mean, an impossible situation. And kind of speaking to what you were talking about relative to the squad building and the budget, I think part of what made this so interesting was the flurry of activity we saw last week or in the past couple of weeks, where they bring in Kimi Ordonez on a 2+1 option deal. Same thing for Luca Piras. There are a handful of core players, like if you think about Kwame Awua or Jacob Erlinson, that have a little bit of tenure on their contract. If Loudon wanted to, they had a core in place. They had a manager who knows those players and knows how to operate under these conditions that really could have done the job. Obviously, you need to re-sign your Tommy McCabe types, your Hugo Farus, probably you turn Abdelatif Abukora into a transfer fee at some point. But there was a route forward for this project. Now with Martin gone, with Steve Birnbaum, who was Oliver Gage's replacement, apparently leaving the team today as well, it's a real reset no matter where you're looking.
Yeah, and it does just kind of strike you as the new ownership comes in and is just by all means necessary replacing the old guard because they want their quote unquote their guys in charge with it. And it's just going to be a really hard change from a Loudon team who is admittedly punching well above their weight this year. They're currently fourth in the Eastern Conference with the berth for not only a possibility for their first ever playoff appearance, but like to be hosting a playoff game is something phenomenal for this Loudon project. So it's a really massive change that they're trying to undertake here. But from Ryan Martin's perspective, I will be very interested to see if he does end up leaving Loudon United at the end of the year, where he may end up. He could very well be reuniting with Gage at Fort Wayne FC. There could be plenty of other opportunities and openings within USL as well, or potentially even getting an assistant role at an MLS job, which we have seen people parlay into getting into other USL coaching opportunities as well. So it does feel like there are a lot of opportunities that we would see Martin pop back up within the US soccer ecosystem.
I guess for me, what I am looking to see is who gives Martin the chance, who does Loudon bring in? And Ryan, you mentioned a team like Fort Wayne who has Gage now as their kind of director of football. I'm also looking ahead of looking at future USL teams who are going to have job openings, right? I mean, I'm just going to throw it out there, and because I don't know if we're going to talk about the match itself, but how safe do we feel like Connor Smith is in Rhode Island after getting swept and possibly a fifth loss to Hartford, plus the season not going well? Is there a world where he just steps up to director of football and they bring in Ryan Martin to be the coach? There are going to be other coaching positions open along this year. I feel like there's going to be some very bullish ownerships that may look to move on from their coach this year to try to get someone like Martin who they know can work under a budget and can succeed.
And it's an interesting situation because this has been a year where clubs have really been aggressive in the coaching changes We think about your Legion Kaler, what Tampa Bay did, even Union Omaha. Well, Union Omaha having to replace Casciato. But there have been a number of ins and outs and ups and downs in terms of the market right now. And for me, Ryan Martin immediately becomes the number one guy. I think if I'm running a USL team, he's somebody who forces me to think hard about who my coach is. Am I comfortable in that guy long term? Knowing what Ryan Martin, who's 42 years old, he's worked in MLS academies, he's worked in the college ranks, he's done the job as a championship manager. He's checking all of those boxes that I think matter in terms of what you're bringing to the table on a resume. It should make anybody who's on the hot seat feel that much hotter, frankly.
And if you're looking at USL 1 beyond Fort Wayne, there are still 6 other expansion teams that are entering into the league next year. Then you look up within the championship, you have like a Santa Barbara Sky who's going to be entering in as well. So there are at least teams who will be looking to have a coach in place. And if you're looking at a guy in Ryan Martin who's been with the program like Loudon for as long as he has, basically since their inaugural season, you would possibly want that person to be setting the foundation for your club moving forward, that any of these expansion openings could very well be one that Martin looks at and takes as the kind of next project of his career.
Can I give a sicko placement? For a team that is known to not have a big budget and some fans seem to be getting tired, could you imagine Ryan Martin in Pittsburgh?
We talked about it when we last had the Lily discussion, that Lily just is like, no, I don't need the budget. I would like to imagine Ryan Martin going somewhere with money. And if that's Pittsburgh with the stadium project and them saying, hey, we're going to actually let you like build a legitimate squad, that sounds great.
Give him the New York Cosmos.
Yeah.
Bob Lilly joins the New York Cosmos. Now that's football heritage.
Bob Lilly joins DC United.
Well, speaking of footballing heritage, how about we do the exact opposite and AI generate some football heritage? Why don't we? Cascades FC, they announced their branding, formerly Lane United, one of the class teams of League Two up in Eugene. They have rebranded now to Cascades FC, and they got under fire for using AI for their photos of fans of their stadium, which is one thing, but then immediately started blocking anybody who asked or reported on it. So of all the good press of a pretty decent crest, again, we all know how we feel about mountains on the show. AI content being used by a USL club right afterward, not exactly the best taste to leave fans with.
I think for me, it's the reaction more than the actual use of AI. Like, I'm not going out here and saying make graphics with AI or that sort of thing. That was a mistake in the first place. But I think if Sporting Cascades then come out and say, hey, we own up, we realize we made a mistake, we're not going to do it henceforth, that would win a little bit of credit for me. The fact that they're just blocking anybody who responded to it and pointed out, hey, AI is bad, is a really bad look. I don't know who behind the scenes saw the AI generated photos of fans where everyone is like tinged yellow and thought people wouldn't catch on. That seems crazy to me. So yeah, let's hope they learn from this going forward, kind of eat crow, and we never talk about this again because yeah, bad.
Yeah, and from what I felt like was an okay, I guess, badge, like I still actually really liked the Lane United type of branding and was almost hopeful that they should have just brought it up into League One. But yeah, the AI stuff, especially with marketing, it just kind of screams that it was cutting a corner or almost being, you don't want to say being lazy, but like not, it is just kind of in a way being lazy. Like, you mean to tell me you can't go out and find 4 people in your community to take a photo holding up the scarf and like trying to kind of brand yourselves, like endear yourself to the community? I don't know, like from a marketing perspective, it really it felt like if you're going to be cutting corners on your branding and this is how you're going to at least kind of unveil yourself, where else could this team be cutting corners in the future? And if the way that they're going to respond to criticism is just outright blocking, you're not really encouraging your local fans to buy in or your neutrals to kind of care.
I think I said Cascade FC. I meant to say Sporting Cascade, so that's on me. That's my fault. But I'm just confused by the AI generated, because maybe I'm confused here. It looked like there was old stadium photos. Are they using like an old stadium in Eugene?
No, they're rebuilding a new thing on the site of a old stadium, but
Okay.
my understanding is it's a full teardown rebuild.
Okay, so like I'm not saying AI is good. Just hear me out. I'm not saying AI is good. But hey, here's the old stadium. We want to put soccer players in there because maybe they don't have a picture of the old stadium being used for soccer. Not saying it's okay. That's almost acceptable, almost. But Lane United had a good following, like a really good following, and you couldn't find 4 fans from Lane United to hold your scarf. You really? And talk about spitting in the face of your fans that you've changed their branding. They have years of jerseys, years of just merch, of just being like, we're changing everything when we didn't have to. And we're not even going to try to build a genuine community relationship anymore. That is just bizarro world to me.
Am I too nitpicky? Oh boy, that came out wrong. Nitpicky. If I say that Sporting Cascades is a little bit too general, like it doesn't necessarily own up to the Eugene of it all in the same way.
Yes, that's my major beef I have with the Carolina Ascent. They play in Charlotte, yet
Sure.
They try to represent mountains and beaches, which neither are in Charlotte.
And granted, again, fans of mountains here at the USL show. But
Big mountain fan.
I mean, it's the kind of equidistance being from someone in Charlotte, but I get what you're saying that it would be stronger branding if they just called themselves from Charlotte, which I think would endear people more here. But yeah, like Sporting Cascades, like if they went with like Cascadia FC, I feel like that could have been stronger. Adding in the Sporting just felt kind of more unnecessary with it. But like Lane United was a very recognizable brand. Like if you look at the logo, you almost get like it's almost like Nottingham Forest-esque within like the old tree and the river with it, that you could very well see this having it been like a patch that someone would wear on a jean jacket and have it look pretty good and everything. It felt like going the Sporting Cascades route. And honestly, the more that I like look at the logo, it doesn't strike me as a logo. It strikes me as you would see this as like a ski resort.
Well, we kind of talk about building communities and getting involved with your community and whatnot. Who does that better than some AEW? Oh, baby, we got a wrestling USL connection. AEW and Pittsburgh, El Paso, and one other team whom I'm not remembering off the top of my head, Orange County, all are partnered with AEW, which was one of the collabs I have ever seen. I'm just confused.
I listen, I'm not a wrestling guy. What I am aware of the fact is that so many people on the internet and in USL circles specifically are very into it. I have not seen fan reaction around any bit of USL news to this degree, probably since Pro-Rel, which feels crazy to say, but like people are excited about this. So kudos to Official League, AEW, whoever at the league made this happen, because people are happy and I don't understand it.
I mean, when I first saw this, I thought to myself, like, this is like the most Mad Libs headline that I've ever seen. Like, they picked 3 teams out of a hat and decided, okay, we're going to spin a wheel and they're going to partner with them for the year. But no, like, there was, I think, there was a highlight earlier this week or either tonight that there was an AEW wrestler who was walking into the ring or like walking into the arena wearing a Pittsburgh Riverhounds top already. So like you're already seeing the fruits of the labor of the partnership. And God, I wanted Phil on tonight's show so I can get his take on the El Paso Locomotive connection of it all.
All I'm saying is that if we can somehow get him to agree with it, a big Bob Lilly show apparently, just get him in the ring, just screaming at wrestlers for 45 minutes while fans just watch on. I need everybody to have a proper USL experience.
Let us open up the new Pittsburgh Stadium with an AEW event. It reminds me of that scene in Semi-Pro from Will Ferrell when after the basketball game, he tried to fight the bear in the boxing ring.
You get the Flint Tropics into the USL. What are we doing?
Well, people may not, like you just mentioned, John, you're not a big wrestling guy, right? But like people who don't know, like All Elite, like AEW, it has like over 1 million followers on Twitter alone. This is honestly one of the biggest collaborations that this league has ever done. It's kind of unbelievable.
Well,
AEW
is owned. We're going in the same direction. It's the Khan family, who's Fulham and the Jaguars. Like they're a big deal in sporting circles to begin with.
Ah, man. Anything else from this? Just other than it's really cool? No. Okay. All right. So how about we get to some matches where we are first going to go over to the Super League. I want to start off with Sporting Jacks versus DC Power, where, hey, look, Sporting Jacks, they get their first ever match at the professional level. They've been doing the League 2 W League thing for a while. They even get the scoring started with Jade Pinnock to start it. But, hey, DC Power may be starting this season how they ended last one. They get 3 goals to start this season to win 3-1. I mean, how much of this can we just chalk up to week 1 and this is a team who's been together for a year now? Or can we really say, hey, DC Power was showing some promise at the end of last season?
I do want to start off with the Jacksonville shout out of the fact that they actually distributed 9,700 tickets for this game. And because of A, the rain delay, and B, the camera angle at that stadium, you couldn't really appreciate it. But if they even stay remotely close to that level, which the Carolina Ascent are kind of the forebear in that regard, but if Jacksonville keeps up that support, huge deal for them. In terms of the performance, Jacksonville completed 121 passes in the final third, and DC barely got to 30. Like, they dominated the run of play. I thought the way that their back three operated was really slick from the get-go. Grace Philpotts, who they brought in from Brooklyn over the offseason from that left side, was so good on the underlap. To me, I think the big thing for DC was the way their defensive block stood up. Claire Constant, who came back after last season, and then Sydney Cummings, who they brought over from Spokane, looked like they'd been playing together for a decade. So good in central defense. And it set the table for them to be so effective on the counterattack. Now, some of that was familiar faces. Anna Bagley, for example, I thought was very good, kind of tucking inside and roaming. Other players, Jada Bedoya, who they got in from Carolina Ascent, was great, tearing up that left side. It felt like a really good mix of, like you're saying, Kaylor, building on some of the ideas, some of the players that were there at the end of last year, but mostly absorbing pressure, trusting that the new players you brought in are up to the level, and then executing. Promising stuff for sure for DC.
And this is DC's largest road victory in club history as well. And that's kind of how you want to start the upcoming year. But John, like you said, with the number of final third entrances that Sporting Jacks had, they will very much be fine. And I will be very curious how they do taking on defending champion Tampa Bay this weekend.
I guess, we talked about it a little bit, and this is the fun part about having a second year of a professional league, right? We're seeing names we recognize, we remember, and we're like, oh, this player's here now. Sporting Jacks went kind of risky, and they went with players that we don't know.
Yeah. It's really college heavy, that roster. Yeah.
It's extremely college heavy, extremely local college heavy. The amount of University of Florida, University of North Florida, I believe a couple of USF and UCF girls, but mostly UNF and UF girls on that team, they look the part. And this is kind of where we talk about what Super League means. These are women who in years past would not have had a chance to play domestically because maybe they weren't that step of being a starter in the NWSL. They would have had to look abroad. Now they're here. I mean, yes, they lose 3-1, but like you two have both mentioned, I mean, Jacksonville was able to put together passes. They were able to put together long sustained possession in the final third. They were able to force some issues, but DC Power was just a little bit better. Defensively, they were rock solid other than one early moment in this match. I think that Jacksonville's taken a risk, but if this team can grow together throughout the year, I think they have a chance to be a real deal contender this year.
And obviously, when you think about the problem of can we do the job in the final third, there are some teams that just never solve it. But some of the ideas you saw from Jacksonville were really good in this game. The fact that that first goal comes off the counter press, essentially. They figured out, okay, if we clamp down in the specific area, we can drive through Meg Hughes, let her dribble with that short field against a scrambling defense. That eliminates the problem you have where you can kind of stall out just passing back and forth. The fact that it's week one, they looked good and they had a little bit of innovation in their back pocket, I think is promising.
Well, anything else on this match? Well, Lexington, hey, you guys get a draw and you got a pretty fun match on the men's side that we'll talk about later. But we get a 6-goal affair total where Lexington gets a 3-3 draw, where they go up 3-2 with just a few minutes to go. But in the 90th minute, it was a penalty. Jasmine Amid finishes it home, and it goes 3-3. And it feels very Lexington-y. But we mentioned this about how, hey, we're looking for players now that we recognize that we know. How about Addie McCain and Amina Ekic in the same lineup? That's disgusting. That's just not okay.
And despite the fact that this ended up as the 3-3 draw, I really felt like Lexington probably had the better ideas in this game.
Yeah.
You look at the way that they're playing. I mean, it's almost 4-2-4 offensively, and doing what Fort Lauderdale did last season with Addie McCain, letting her roam from that kind of left number 10-ish spot, get the wingers involved. I thought Catherine Berry's movement as the other striker next to her was really unselfish in the way that she was bending the defense. Often you'd see her kind of cut right and allow Amina Ekic to get in on her left foot. Again, unselfish movement that's letting the rest of the team operate. For me, something that Lexington probably lacked in 2024/2025 was the ability to go to their bench and be able to get something reliable. This was a team that was quite active with their substitution patterns, but it never felt like they had that player that would come and change the game. Mackenzie Weiner comes into this one, gets the goal with Ekic because they have that chemistry coming over from Spokane. Moyer, who we know from year one, comes in and is really positive in the central midfield. So much of this performance for Lexington felt like they had the chemistry. And I think there are things to clean up at the back. I thought Shania Gordon kind of ate them alive in transitional moments. But yeah, for me, I come away thinking Lexington is the real deal after that big name off season.
And it's a match where we had the same number of goals as we did cards, so that's always at least a chaotic fixture. And if you stretch the stats across both seasons, Lexington now has back-to-back 3-3 draws.
Interesting. One thing that small league, right? Michael Fuchs does mention in chat of, hey, having odd number teams, but we are, is it 9 now? We're still at a small number, so you're going to see a lot of rematches. But Addie McCain going against her former club immediately is fun, and I think that if you're Fort Lauderdale, you understand a little bit of moving on from Addie when you see what Locklear was doing. We saw Locklear really kind of come through in the playoffs. I think that's where she really made her name known, because before that, it really was the Addie McKay, Jasmine Mead, and really Shania Gordon, who was starting at right back in this match, actually. And you were really seeing those players be the stars, but Locklear was the one that gets the goals to take them to the final. And we get another one tonight. I'm not saying that Locklear is going to be Addie McCain. That's kind of unfair to her, but she's proved to be a more than capable replacement.
Yeah, and sort of a different role, obviously, because Locklear is more of a pure striker.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that ties them together is how you use that gravity up the middle to open up the wings, because that's really the big ticket with Fort Lauderdale. If you can get Gordon going and getting Hamid going, that's the end game. Locklear has the benefit of really being up in your face, pushing the back line back because of her movement. She gets the goal in this game. I think that's what I like about opening weekend is you can look at all of these teams. It's a clean slate. Yes, there will be sloppiness and mistakes, but on both sides of this match, I come away feeling encouraged about the attacking balance.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned the number 10, Catherine Gonzalez. I can't remember. Was she on this team last year? I don't think she was.
I believe. Yeah, Carolina.
Was she? That's what I thought. I think you're right. And, she slots in great. She, it felt really coherent. You can really see where you have cores working together. One of the key point for me with Lexington was you see Cox go to the bench and make way of Osman, who those are goalkeeper changes. And there's a world where Cox was one of the better goalkeepers in the league if she didn't have a revolving door defense. For them to move on and have Cox go to the bench, maybe there's an injury thing we don't know about because Cox is still wearing the 1, but feels like a bold move to move on after she was so rock solid back there, all things considering.
Yeah, I think they probably have the belief in Asman just because of the NWSL experience. Like, getting her in feels like a little bit of a coup for them. I'll be curious to see, because I think the fact that goalkeeper tended to be unsettled for Lexington a lot of the time really hurt their defensive organization. There's value in sticking with one goalkeeper and letting those relationships build. So I don't know if giving up 3 goals in the opener necessarily instills that confidence, but we'll see how that storyline unfolds for this team.
I'm trying to check something really fast. Oh, yeah. I did not realize completely that Alyssa Bourgeois made it her way to Lexington until I was watching this match. Jesus Christ, Lexington.
I mean, four former Spokane players played in this game for them, and 4 good Spokane players.
Really good ones, yeah. We ready for some?
Allison Pantuso, Allison Pantuso from Brooklyn, who was one of the best defenders in the league last year, not only starts and looks good defensively, but gets that go-ahead goal, was it, at the end of the game?
Yes. The go-ahead that eventually becomes a game drawer. But yeah. We ready to go into some League One? All right. So, as I am trying to remember, I had put on our lineup a little bit of kind of an AV Alta day where they lose kind of 2 straight matches. And I just kind of want to talk about it a little bit. I say lose. They 3-3 to Texoma, and then they lose 2-0 to Union Omaha. And we were really hot on AV Alta for a while because they were really looking solid. They looked like possibly the best team in League One. They've since come to earth where Texoma, they are surviving, but Union Omaha is starting to look like Union Omaha again. I just don't know where to start on this. Should I be concerned about AV Alta, or is this just kind of bad 2 matches?
The thing with AV Alta is that I watch them, you watch them, and you're like, oh, this is pretty soccer. They're really enjoyable. They've got dismal expected goal numbers. Like they're minus 16 XG right now in 21 games. That's not the worst all time, but kind of historically bad results for AV Alta. And I think the way that they suffered in these games was similar. In each case, against Texoma and Omaha, it's a team kind of running with a 4-2-3-1 or 4-1-4-1 press, not letting them do what they want to do by setting the tempo and having the rhythm and build out. I think about that first goal in the Texoma game, where you get the back pressure from Lamine Jane on the wing. He kind of does it himself, and there's absolutely no defensive recovery and structure for Alta. Kind of a similar deal with some of the goals we saw, that second one in the Union Omaha game that ends up with Ryan Jiba scoring. I think for Alta, I want this team to be a little bit more pragmatic. I'm totally here for having that primary identity of possession, but the inability to switch it up when the moment demands it is probably getting in their way to a certain extent.
And especially since it felt like this match was largely dictated of letting AV Alta get back in the game due to the man advantage they had played for nearly about a half hour's worth of the game. Like Texoma was up 3-0 for the first time in their club's history. And AV Alta, to their credit, came back and won, or not won. They came back and drew this match, but they still haven't won a game in USO once since the start of July, or when that recent Jurassic Park film went into theaters. It's just... it is at least a concern for a team who has, by all accounts, like they started the year out rather reliable betting wise and were rather good, and they've kind of gone cold, and it's seen them tumble down the table to be just 4 points ahead of Texoma.
Well, we kind of talk about Texoma, and now we're going to talk about the storylines of the two clubs that played AV Alta as well. I want to start off with Texoma because if you were on the internet for just a little bit, there was an article that was written that got just a little bit of traction before being taken down of allegedly the club is moving stadium within their own city. But then they also alleged that players were not being paid. Now, I will say that article was taken down rather quickly. So we're not here to say that is absolutely happening, because we don't have reliable sources that say that those things are definitely happening. But one thing that is for sure is that we saw Texoma kind of put things together really fast, and it didn't feel like they were ready. And they're still just kind of getting results still, despite what could be allegedly happening off the pitch. But again, there are like no reliable sources on that right now. So I'd also want to throw that out there of that was reported, but the sources on that are sketchy at best right now.
In a lot of ways, they're kind of the poor man's Chattanooga in that they want to make the game very choppy. They can be very quick on the counterattack. They have none of the defensive discipline, but they kind of share this whole situation is weird vibe. And with much love to Scott McKenzie, who's doing a wonderful job there, I think there's a reason that Chattanooga is a cut above Texoma this year. They also got very lucky by playing Greenville. The ensuing after the Triumph had to go to California one weekend, go to Indianapolis for the Jägermeister Cup game with their first choice team, and then just have a game against Texoma. I don't want to call it a schedule win because Texoma had some very good ideas. I thought they looked bright in the press. At the same time, I think the schedule did play a big role in that. But hey, they're making their luck. They force teams to make mistakes. I think the front three with McCormick and Spengler and Brandon McManus is so high energy and just fun to watch. There's a certain spunk to Texoma that means they're going to stay in this race until the very bitter end.
And AV Alta does play Chattanooga next if we're talking about similar teams.
Speaking of staying in this till the bitter end, don't look now, but objects are closer than they appear, and the Owls are back. With a 2-0 win, they find themselves in the final playoff spot, where maybe the news of their demise was spread a little bit too soon. They're finally getting a goal out of one of their bigger offseason acquisitions in Prosper Kasim. And that ends up being what is the game winner. He also gets an assist later on. But Union Omaha is finally starting to look like Union Omaha. What are we kind of thinking of their ascent?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned it relative to the Alta game of being impressed with their pressing shape. Like Brandon Knapp, Chela Martinez, and Max Schneider dominated the central midfield in that match, which few teams have done against AV Alta. And the way that they were able to break into the wings and let Bronick and Prosper Kasim cook, kind of Fort Lauderdale style. If we're thinking about having that central presence, Stefano Pino in this case, who demands the attention of defenders and is constantly putting himself in positions where he could receive and score goals. That relationship for three players that really don't have a lot of game minutes together looks fantastic. And Omaha is a team that has depth. They've got a real sense of identity, even though they've lost their coach, and this is a somewhat new-looking roster as compared to seasons past. You can feel the DNA of a physical, pressureful, quick-moving team still shining through. They feel like they've got a legitimate momentum going on that's going to maybe take them into the postseason, if you ask me.
That is one thing that's interesting that I wanted to touch base on, because Omaha does have this weekend off. They don't have another game until September 13th. And having won back-to-back games for the first time since the middle of June, you have to wonder, like, how does having that time off now, like, really impact them moving forward? Because their next game is at least against Westchester. But then the 4 games following that, you have as Spokane, Knoxville, both at home, Chattanooga, and then Portland Hearts of Pine. Those are 4 very difficult games to at least kind of approach.
Hold on. When is Union Omaha's next match?
Per FootMob, it's September 13th.
What?
That's how does that happen?
And Union Omaha started the season very slowly because of stadium availability and all that jazz. Like, they didn't play a ton of games in March. So the fact that we're just jamming
at least the USL, at least USL is at least showing on their website they're playing Texoma on Saturday, so that might be a FootMob error.
Okay.
Or on Saturday, September 6th, that is.
They've still played less games than 5 other clubs, and to have a bye at this stage of the season is interesting. It means it's going to be a log jam end of the year for them.
I'm about to just kind of get lost a little bit. I'm about to just go to their website, because that is
they play on September 6th, and then they're just in action constantly.
Okay.
The year. Yeah.
So that is just a FODMOP thing. That makes, I was about to say, that is nuts. How does that happen? Anyway, all right, cool. All right, are we ready for a little bit of Champo talk?
Have we broke out Champo before? I like that.
I don't think we have. I don't even know why I said that. I probably shouldn't do it again.
Sticking.
Should we just quickly mention El Glamico purely off of Hartford loses Yang and everybody's mad and shocked, and then they just go 3-0 Rhode Island because they just own Rhode Island?
It's the first win over Rhode Island.
Owen is strong given the fact that it was kind of 2 meh results a month ago. The thing about this game is that Hartford traveled to San Antonio at midweek, rotated 6 players. Like, you could argue that they had their 3rd string striker up top. And yes, some of the goals came late after Rhode Island was overextending to try to equalize. But Hartford really felt like they were in control. They didn't allow much penetration in the final third. I thought the back line stood tall, as it has for most of the season. Some of that owes to the fact that Rhode Island, for whatever reason, just cannot figure out the right balance when they are in possession. But man, Hartford, so impressive, knowing when to bunker in, knowing when they can counterattack. I love watching this team play. They've got a swagger about them. It's crazy to see Hartford genuinely feel like a team that could make noise in the playoffs.
And unbeaten in their last 6 games in the league, 4 clean sheets in that time. This is a team that has climbed into 7th in the Eastern Conference and is quickly breathing down the necks of getting a home playoff game. I'll pose the question to the group right now. There's 5 points separating Loudoun and Hartford right now, and I think Hartford finished above Loudoun.
Hartford has the third best goal difference in the East. I think Hartford might end up. I think they're going to finish fourth. Like if I had to pick a team that's getting a home playoff game, Louisville and Charleston, obviously. I think it'll be North Carolina and Hartford.
I still believe in Pittsburgh. Weekend. Yeah.
Okay.
I still believe in Pittsburgh, but I think that it's going to be 4-5 Pittsburgh, Hartford. Flip whichever one you want.
I'm here for that.
So, I mean, that's all I kind of wanted.
Not your Legion.
I do have thoughts. Later. How about we go out to Lexington once again? Hey, soak it in, Lexington fans, specifically Michael Fuchs, who's always in the live chat. And if you want to be in the live chat, Spotify people, or if you're on Apple Podcasts, whatever you are, check out the live chat. Rejoice because, hey, Lexington's good. And they take down a good Oakland Roots team where they get a goal in the 92nd minute after getting another one late from Corey Burke. I thought this one was going to be kind of a route from Oakland. I mean, John, you mentioned it yourself. You know, Nabil Hackshaw is just getting assists now because why not? Oakland's fun again. And then maybe Lexington has a little bit of special sauce.
Yeah, Oakland was fun for about 10 minutes, and then they put one more shot attempt in total for the next 85 minutes after scoring. That is the opposite of fun. But I think it owes to Lexington's balance more than anything else. They understood when they could push forward in that kind of 4-2-4 press. They knew when they needed to sit back. They've got so many levers in the way that they attack. It can be the counter through someone like Michael Adedokun. They're awesome in possession, the way that they are so patient, the way that they are able to interchange on and off the ball, constantly moving, constantly challenging your defensive scheme with that movement. I think late in the game, the freedom that was afforded to Kieran Sargent, who's really become more of a soft center back these days after starting the year being really high flying, they gradually let him start to push forward, underlap, combine with those left-sided players. He looked awesome, and Blaine Ferry on that left foot, feeding Kieran Sargent the ball, was delightful to see. Probably why Blaine Ferry got extended through 2026 after this game. But yeah, Lexington, it feels like the payoff for the process that we've been seeing all year long. This team has made the right moves in season. They've trusted what Terry Boss is trying to instill. They're another team kind of in the same vein as Hartford that has come on strong at the right time and feels like they could legit get a home playoff game.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at the Western Conference right now, you have spots 2nd through 8th separated by 4 points. And Lexington went from the start of March to the middle of June without a win. That's 9 matches in a row. And they could very well be finishing 2nd in the Western Conference right now. But like looking at this match, they had this is at least the 2nd time this year that they've won 3 matches in a row. And it's just been a really impressive turnaround. John, like you said, it's a testament to them just sticking to the process that they had, and it's starting to show results.
When we're looking at this West run, right? Ryan, you mentioned it. Is it 4 through 8 separated by 4 points? What was that again?
Second through 8 separated by 4 points. 8.
It's as tight as it can be, and not just that. I mean, Colorado Springs, Monterey Bay, Oakland Roots. I mean, heck, even Las Vegas have a fighting chance of getting into the playoffs. A little bit less so with Las Vegas, but still, points-wise, it's possible. Do we feel like with Oakland specifically here, John, you mentioned one shot after getting the goal. I get it. But I do like what Oakland has defensively. That it feels sustainable. This isn't like years past where, they score 4 goals, they concede 3 goals, and they just do that every other match until the goals dry up and they're still conceding 4. The defense is legit for this Oakland Roots team. Do we feel like that can be enough to ride them into a final playoff spot?
The defense is legit, but I think it is the backstop for an offense that needs to be more consistent. The fact of the matter is that the Roots are 6 points back of a playoff spot, and Orange County and New Mexico have a game in hand on them. They need to actively make up the difference right now. The defense will be the jumping off point, but it needs to be Danny Trejo getting starts and producing goals. I want to see a little bit more two-way heft from the midfield as well. I've been praiseful of players like Faisal Batash and Ali El Masnawi. I'm losing a little bit of the faith in them in games where they get bogged down in the final third. And maybe what we saw with Hackshaw underlapping, being a little bit more clever and bold in the way that they're manipulating their shape depending on the situation, that could be a way to solve some of the problem. But for now, I don't know if they have enough juice, just given the gap and given the decreasing number of games that they've got to really make up the difference.
And if you're just looking at their future schedule, like they have to start making up this difference now. And like out of their remaining 10 games, 8 of those teams currently occupy a playoff spot. And within their immediate future to get us through September. So they'll have Monterey Bay on the weekend, but Pittsburgh, Charleston, and Tulsa all in a row, and including going to Charleston. And that one is a very challenging one. And then when you get into October, you have Hartford, and then you have to end the year facing this same Lexington team. Yeah, this is kind of a tall ask of this Roots side.
Maybe I'm just getting caught by names, but when I'm looking at what could be a Wolfgang Prentice, a Moray Donor, Pano Samarnagas, Peter Wilson, and possibly a Danny Trejo, all going up the wings, passing into a Peter Wilson into the middle of the pitch, I feel like I have to believe in the names. I feel like I have to.
I think Panos and Trejo and the way that they're able to interact is really the key for the Roots. These are guys that tore the league apart late in their run together in Phoenix before Trejo ended up going to Poland at the end of that season. If they can get 70% of that relationship back and going, you add in Apprentice, you add in what Wilson has become at the number 9 spot, suddenly I start to see the vision a little bit more. But I think Trejo is the question mark. Like, you brought him in to be the difference maker that is going to let you make up that gap at this stage of the season. We haven't seen that level from Danny Trejo in Birmingham. We have only seen him as a substitute cameo for the Roots so far, but he'll be the make or break piece.
So really fast, I want to kind of go over to stay in the West and go to El Paso and Sacramento, where I believe it was Phil that kind of mentioned it on Twitter or on Blue Sky, excuse me, where I think he said that this was the most complete performance we've seen from El Paso this year. He said he's seen more goals be scored by El Paso. He said he's seen more high-flying offense. But in terms of going out and having a game plan and executing it, it felt like this was the most complete match. I can't say I've watched every single El Paso match this year. I've missed a couple, but I largely agree. El Paso looked dominant for this match. And yes, it's only 1-0, but they looked like they went out there and did exactly what they wanted to do against this Republic squad.
I hate to do this again because I feel like I keep talking about short rest in the Jägermeister Cup, but Sacramento did have to go to Loudoun at midweek. Yeah. In this game, they dropped 5 starters by my estimation, including both of the wingbacks and Jared Timmer. So El Paso came into this with an advantage. And I think the fact that you didn't get Gur and Cicerone from the jump played into the Locomotive's hands, because if you are a team that has to work through the central areas, you cannot do it against this Locomotive side. Wilmer Cabrera has drilled the midfield to be very compact. The front line is good about denying useful passing angles that could help them to break lines. That's very intentional, and the Locomotive deserve credit for it. But I think just given some of the context here, this was a favorable game. That's not to say that I wasn't impressed, however. Amando Moreno and Gabby Torres continue to be unreal when they can combine with one another up that left side. I'm loving the energy from Frank DeRoma up the middle, and I thought he was a real solid destroyer when it mattered in this game. There is a lot to recommend El Paso. Now, do I think that they are actually the second best team in the Western Conference? Probably not. but they have a defensive style and that kind of quick twitch, Amando Moreno-driven counterattack that are going to make them a really hard out down the stretch.
And this has always been a fixture that Sacramento has at least historically struggled in when making the trip to El Paso. They've only won one game in El Paso in the all-time meeting history between these two sides. And this is also at least kicking off a 3-match road trip for Sacramento, who will be racking up the frequent flyer miles, going to New Mexico, Tampa Bay, and Rhode Island over the next 3 weeks, including that Jägermeister semifinal with being at Rhode Island. So it is starting a very tough stretch for this Republic team. But, I mean, you're looking at an El Paso team who's been unbeaten in their last 4 games played within the league. And then you have Phoenix, Loudoun, and North Carolina, and Charleston as the next 4 that is at least an approachable set of matches that they could still very much be in the kind of mix of being this like best of the rest at the moment in the table right now.
Awesome. Any final thoughts on this match? How about some final USL thoughts from you guys?
North Carolina is weird this season. They're playing like 50 less passes per game than they did last year. They've got a -5 expected goal difference so far this season, which you wouldn't expect from the number 3 team in the East. And I don't think they care one iota about any of those numbers. They have become a lot more pragmatic, willing to sit in and trust the defense. And the counter with Pedro Dolabella in as less of the breakaway speed than you would anticipate from someone like an Oleg Sanderson, but really serving as this hold-up anchor and somebody that knows how to use his movement has been unreal. Add in the fact that Mikey Maldonado has arguably become the premier long throw-in player in the USL, and they've got this wonky offense that doesn't really score normal goals. Like, it's a lot of weird long shots. It's a lot of those kind of physical set pieces. But hey, it's working. I know we like to joke about Las Vegas, but I think the win that North Carolina got there this weekend really was a testament to the whole project that they've put together. And Gary?
Yeah, for me, I had this one circled pretty early on, purely because they get Zimla, Oliver Zimla, in on loan. He's with Philadelphia Union, right? Formerly of Louisville City, where I got to be honest, it's a little bit harsh to McGuire, whom I'm not sure what the numbers say, but I know as a shot stopper, he's pretty good. Like, he is a good shot stopper that this league has. And in terms of playing it out from the back, he's decent enough. But the one thing that Zimla was able to provide Lou City a few years ago was his ability to be a proper sweeper keeper. He is a young, new age goalkeeper, where if I'm McGuire, I feel a little hard done by, because I feel like a lot of times, a lot of the goals that he's conceded, I can only think of a couple that he should have truly done better on. The rest were defense kind of leaving him out to dry just a little bit. But when you're looking at what Zimla can provide, and being that, I don't want to say like a Koke Vegas type, he's not that extreme, but he can drop in to be a 4th center back or be a 3rd center back and let one of their center backs go forward. He is that option. And so if that's a new wrinkle that this North Carolina team has, I'm very excited to see what they do with him going forward.
Yeah, and Semla's a guy who his advanced numbers during that season in Louisville weren't necessarily the greatest, but he really suffered from the fact that Louisville is kind of feast or famine. Like, they're going to counterpress you to death, but when they give up a chance, it's going to be hard to stop just because it comes in a transitional moment. I think he fits the vibe a little bit better with what North Carolina is trying to do. I'm not here to tell you that he's a gigantic upgrade over Jake McGuire from the jump, but I think John Bradford sees something, and I tend to trust his judgment because this team really misses with their player acquisitions.
Any other thoughts from you guys on the USL front?
Can I ask you for a Pittsburgh opinion, having seen them play against Birmingham? Are you in on Pittsburgh? Like, what's the vibe check there?
Yeah, I am in on Pittsburgh. I think that I saw some people be a little bit out, specifically Pittsburgh fans, be a little bit out on them because, I mean, Eric Dick had just an awful moment in goal. But if it wasn't for that, in all reality, Pittsburgh would be walking out with a 1-0 win. They're defensively solid, and Eric Dick has never just dropped a ball before like that in net, ever. There's a reason why he has some of the safest gloves in the league. I think that they are A-okay. I think there is a major disconnect in the middle of the field right now. I feel like defensively they're good. I feel like getting the ball out wide and crossing it in, they've been very effective. But when you ask Pittsburgh to play the ball through the heart of the pitch, they've been really struggling to do so. And it felt like this was another match where they really struggled to do that. Is that maybe because you had a Sam Joshua and a Sam Mickelhatton shutting them down in the midfield? Possibly, but that's also been kind of Pittsburgh's issue all year long. So I'm not sure.
Yep. No, I think that's fair. I know I wrote about it a bit, but I'm excited to see the ongoing integration of Chase Boone into this team. He feels like he's got a little bit of the spunk that'll help them a lot, breaking lines and being a little bit quicker. And I think he showed that late in the game in this one. But also, yeah, Shashua, whenever I say his name, it feels like I have gum in my mouth. Like it's just hard to get Shashua out. But he looked really good in that midfield spot.
I don't think he minds me saying this, but do you know who his roommate was when he was at Tottenham?
No.
Keziah Sterling.
Oh, really?
That's unreal.
Yeah. I asked him, I was like,
I'm sure they sat together at night thinking, oh man, one day we're going to play in the USL.
Well, it was funny. He was kind of telling the story after things were off, and he was just talking about how he was supposed to play in Tottenham's season finale, basically, and he missed a meeting or was like late to a meeting, so he didn't get to play in the game, which is insane.
Horrible.
But yeah, he was supposed to play in the Premier League and everything, but didn't get the chance. But yeah, that was Joshua has been interesting. He's been really good. He played that midfield role out when he was in MLS Next Pro, and just a little bit in La Liga Dos, but like not much. He can, and I think that if him and Mickelhatton are going to be the guys that can connect play in the middle of the field, I think it's the way to go. I think there's just another side of this of Mark Briggs finally realized that Edwin Lasso was just not good enough to start right now.
Yeah.
I think that's another part of that.
Well, like in terms of the mold that this team needs from the midfield, Lasso on his best day is kind of pure destroyer. And yes, he can hit the long switch, but you put him in the lineup for the defensive contributions. If you're Birmingham, you'd rather have someone like a Shashua who can facilitate, tilt the pitch with their passing, and make that really your hallmark, like using the verticality up top, having that distributor in the midfield. So that's kind of why I liked a lot of what I saw from this team over the weekend.
Well, I'm going to ask 2 questions from you guys, and I'm trying to make sure that I have this right. Yeah, so Mogul Jr. gets on loan to New Mexico United right after New Mexico and Louisville play against each other. I like to think that they just got the deal done after the game.
Yeah, Dennis Sanchez was like shaking his hand, is like, "Hey man, Carlos Mogul available?"
I mean, why not? That's what happened in my head, so therefore I'm reporting it. That's what happened. But do we feel like that is what this New Mexico team has been missing? Because they came out hot just like they did last year, but they've looked lost ever since.
I liked a lot of the adjustments in this game, I will say. And I think Kip Keller coming into the defensive line on loan from Minnesota United is probably the biggest deal of any of the transfer moves outside of Valentin Noel. Mogul is an interesting proposition. He is obviously less of that tempo-setting passer than you would get from someone like a Gideon Zalalem at the number 6 spot, but I think he gives you so much more energy defensively. And given how New Mexico has struggled to defend in almost every phase of play, the fact that Mogul can do a little bit of everything at a high level means that he is an important upgrade for this team. Now, is he going to come in and be the best player at that position in the Western Conference? No, but I think he gives them enough stability to make a difference. And so it's at least worth trying on loan for them.
And to New Mexico's credit, they did go into Lynn Family Stadium and didn't lose. That's something that not many teams can at least claim to say. I mean, they kept, they added in like the second clean sheet or the second 0-0 draw that Louisville fans have seen at home this year. Like they haven't seen multiple 0-0 draws as a club across 2 games since 2023. They hadn't seen 2 0-0 draws at home since 2017 when they were at Louisville Slugger Field. And like on the Louisville side of this, it's opened up the player shield race a little bit more for Charleston.
Do we feel like Charleston can truly track them down, or do we feel like Louisville has enough to just go ahead and wrap this up for a second year in a row?
Isn't it like a 1-point gap right now? I mean, it's 1 or 2
point.
points, 1 point. Louisville will feel good about the fact that they've got the tiebreakers because they have beaten Charleston twice this year. But anything can happen when it's that slim of a margin. Like, even if Louisville is probably the better team in that one-on-one, a very specific matchup, Charleston just eats everybody else for breakfast. Like, that offense is a steamroller. I wouldn't be shocked to see the battery pip them for the player shield, frankly.
And with the gap being this slim, like it's not really affording teams to like, you can't like start resting your starters once you clinch playoff spots. Like they still have to go full strength.
Okay, FC Tulsa 6 points back. Do they have a chance at it?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think they were a little too slow too early. But I think if they hit their form 1 match earlier, I think so. But I think 6 points with Charleston and Louisville is a little too much to gain ground on. They don't have any of their direct matchups. I think they've already gotten those done this year. I know Louisville they've already played. I don't know about Charleston. So
the fact that we're having this conversation at all about FC Tulsa, if you had told me that in March, I would have thought you were insane.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to ask you guys a question before we go on to final thoughts. I was so beyond out on Detroit City, and I have started to see a little something. I still think I'm out. I still think that I am. When I say out, I mean they were looking like a possible top 3 team in the East to start the year.
Sure.
And now I'm thinking, are they going to get that final playoff spot? But when you see famous YouTuber Matthew Sheldon slot in and like play really well, Kobe Hernandez-Foster has slotted in very nicely into that midfield. It looks like they have refound some form. Do we feel like they have a chance to fight for a home playoff, or am I justified in thinking that maybe they're a little bit closer to 8 than they are 4?
I think it's really hard to overstate how good Kobe Hernandez-Foster has been since he arrived there. And I was initially doubtful that he'd be so impactful because I had this idea in my head that he is this deep-lying midfielder that is only going to play that position and create from that spot. And Denny Dicchio in the past 130 minutes or so, game and a half, has decided, no, Kobe Hernandez-Foster is kind of our number 10. And he ate Tampa Bay alive. He did it the week prior. He is so good in those positions, and his vision is just so advanced for this level. It's something we saw hit bits and pieces of, certainly, with the Legion. But Detroit kind of has built their system around it these days. And yes, it's against Tampa Bay with the weird weather delay in the middle of the game. You can say the Ates Diouf goal from distance, which was awesome, but maybe a little bit lucky. At the same time, Detroit had their number and dominated through the midfield. And Tampa Bay is Tampa Bay, but I feel so much better about Detroit than I did 3 weeks ago. I still think that Hartford and North Carolina will be ahead of them in the race for the home playoff games. But man, a couple more weeks of this level from Detroit, and I'll be changing that tune.
And like I've gone through it within my at least betting articles that when Detroit plays at home, they're a completely different beast to the team that played on the road. Like they had that run of road matches earlier, or they had that run of matches through May and the first half of June where they went six without a win, and 5 of those games were played away from home. Now, when you look at like their upcoming schedule, if they have San Antonio at home this weekend, they host Louisville and North Carolina before the end of the year. I do think there is just something about Keyworth where going into it, expecting this to have like an under 2.5 goals to be the favored or betting line for it, it is a challenging place for any team to go into and play. And that's why I at least am backing Detroit just for simply playing at home.
For sure. How about some final thoughts for the night, John?
Yeah, one of the local indie movie theaters near me is doing a double feature screening series around the movies of M. Night Shyamalan. So over the weekend, I went and saw Trap and an Alfred Hitchcock movie. I'm gonna go see Unbreakable, which is the Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson one, which is paired with Pulp Fiction, and then M. Night Shyamalan is doing a Q&A, which I'm so hyped for. So yeah.
Very cool. Imagine what it's like to live in New York.
It's great. Yeah. Expensive, but great.
Brian?
Yeah, I mean, still going through Alien Earth and everything, at least in terms of what I'm watching. But yeah, I actually haven't run quite a bit because for some reason on Friday I did 6.5 miles just like out of the blue, and my legs still feel exhausted. So,
did you just get the feeling of like, hey, I'm locked into it on Friday?
Yeah, I don't know. I was running at 5 a.m. Around Charlotte. I'm not the only person running at that time, so I'm not the only lunatic at that hour. But like once I hit like the half-hour mark, I just thought to myself, I'm going to run for a full hour and just see how I feel. And then for whatever reason, after the Spurs victory on Saturday, I got motivated to run again, and that probably wasn't good to put 8.5 miles over the course of like less than 48 hours on the legs. So
just trying to do your best Brendan Johnson impression with the running.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think there's a famous movie that was said something about I just started running. I think there's a movie out there about that one.
Yeah, Ryan really is like spiritually the Forrest Gump of this podcast.
I guess for me, not a whole lot for me today. I'm just gonna tell people, hey, go hug your friends, go call somebody, tell them that you love them, be a friend, and all that kind of stuff. Share some love around the world. We always need a little bit more of it. So thank you all so much for listening. We appreciate you so much. And for the first and final time tonight, here's out.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL Show.
The USL Show is now proudly part of the Protagonist podcast family. Please go to protagonistsoccer.com to check out more work. Thanks for stopping by. We'll see everyone again next time.